The Galactic Council Hall was silent when the humans entered. Their footsteps echoed across the polished floor, calm and confident, as if they already understood the weight of the moment. Every species present watched them, some with curiosity, some with doubt, and a few with thinly hidden resentment. The humans moved in a small group, led by Ambassador Raylan Torres, a man known for his steady voice and clear logic. He looked calm, but inside he carried a heavy hope. He believed this peace summit could change the galaxy. The Council had called this meeting to resolve years of border conflicts, trade disputes, and political tension. Humans traveled farther than any other species to attend, determined to prove their commitment to peace. Torres had spent months preparing data, timeline maps, and proposals for cooperation. He wanted the summit to be a turning point, something future generations would thank them for. But as he looked around the hall, he sensed something was wrong. The Council's leadership sat higher than the rest, a design choice meant to symbolize unity, but in reality it created a separation. The faces of the older empires showed the same tired expressions of superiority. Torres noticed the way they exchanged glances when the humans entered, as if expecting trouble before a single word was spoken. Still, he kept his confidence. Humans had faced worse situations. They had earned their place in the galaxy through effort and reliability, not age or inherited power. When the meeting began, the first topics moved smoothly. Minor species spoke about trade issues, and humans supported their concerns. Several delegates nodded in appreciation, but the tone changed when the representative of the Threx Dominion stood up. His tall frame and sharp eyes scanned the room. Before landing on the human table, he accused humanity of interfering in border disputes, of pushing their influence too far, and of destabilizing regions that belong to the Dominion. Torres raised his hand politely to respond, but the council chair waved him down. The Threx delegate continued speaking with confidence, presenting false information as if it were fact. Torres held his frustration. He reminded himself to stay calm and professional. When the delegate finished, Torres tried again to speak. But the council chair, an elder from a powerful empire, refused once more. The room felt colder. Several species looked away, uncomfortable with the unfairness. Some whispered quietly, questioning why the council would silence the humans. Torres watched the chair carefully. The expression on the chair's face revealed everything. The decision had been made long before the meeting began. The council intended to blame the humans. It was a political move. The older empires did not want to admit their own mistakes, and humanity was a convenient target. Humans were rising too fast, earning alliances through honesty and cooperation rather than intimidation or tradition. The old powers feared change. Torres understood the game, but he still hoped reason would prevail. He stood anyway, even without permission, because silence would mean accepting the accusation. His voice was calm as he said that the data presented was incorrect and he wished to show evidence. But before he could continue, the council chair declared the human statements irrelevant and ordered Torres to sit. The words echoed through the hall, sharp and final. The insult was heavy. Not just to Torres, but to all humans, there was a moment of absolute stillness. Even the Threx delegate stared, surprised at how openly the chair dismissed them. The disrespect was no longer subtle. It was complete. Torres exhaled slowly. He felt something change inside him, not anger but clarity. The humans had come for peace, but they had been treated as if their voice did not matter. This was not negotiation. This was humiliation disguised as diplomacy. Torres did not argue. He did not raise his voice or show anger. Instead, he placed his datapad on the table and looked at the human delegation behind him. They all understood without a word. They rose. Every member of the human delegation stood up in unison. A quiet sound spread across the hall as their chairs moved back. The motion was simple, but the message was powerful. The other species watched with wide eyes, unsure if they were witnessing a protest or the beginning of something larger. Torres bowed his head politely to the room. It was a gesture of respect, despite the disrespect shown to him. Then he said in a clear voice that the humans would not continue in a place where truth was ignored. The humans walked out. No one stopped them. No one dared. The doors closed behind them with a soft but final sound. Inside the hall, shock spread like a wave. Some delegates whispered nervously. Others stared at the council chair, waiting for an explanation. The chair looked unsettled. Realizing too late the consequences of the decision, outside the building, a crowd of reporters and citizens from many worlds waited. When they saw the humans leaving early, confusion replaced excitement. Cameras turned toward Torres as he stepped forward. He faced them calmly and said that humanity believed in peace, but peace could not be built on lies or forced silence. He explained nothing more and did not accuse anyone. He simply stated that the council had refused to allow humans to defend themselves, and therefore humanity could not participate. The message was short, but it was enough. Within minutes, the news spread across the galaxy. Systems light years away watched the broadcast. People reacted with surprise, anger, and concern. Many had never seen a species walk away from a council summit before. It was something unthinkable, something that challenged the entire structure of galactic politics. Torres and the delegation boarded their transport ship. The engines hummed softly as the ship lifted from the council platform. Through the windows, Torres watched the grand hall grow smaller. For a moment he wondered how history would remember this day. Inside the ship, the humans felt a mix of emotions. Some were frustrated, others relieved, but all of them were united in one simple belief. They had done the right thing. Back in the council hall, silence still held the air. The chair finally spoke, but the words felt empty. The council tried to continue the meeting, but the energy was gone. Delegates whispered among themselves, questioning the fairness of the system they were supposed to trust. One minor species representative stood and declared that the humans had been treated unjustly. Another agreed. Soon a quiet rebellion formed, not loud, but clear enough to shake the foundation of the council. The council chair realized they had made a mistake. A serious one, and the galaxy had seen it. The peace summit that was meant to bring unity had instead exposed fault lines that had been hiding for years. Delegates left the hall with heavy thoughts. Some worried about losing human support. Others worried about what would happen next. Far from the council world, Torres sat in his ship, looking at the stars passing by. He knew the journey ahead would not be easy. But he also knew one thing with absolute certainty: humanity would not bow, and the galaxy would soon understand the true cost of pushing them away. The human delegation's ship moved smoothly through space, leaving the council world behind like a fading memory. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was quiet but heavy with thought. No one spoke for a long time. Everyone understood that what they had done would shake the galaxy. Ambassador Raylan Torres stood near the main window, watching the stars stretch into long lines as the ship reached faster speeds. His face was calm, yet his mind kept replaying the moment the council chair had silenced him. He knew the consequences would reach far beyond the summit room. The council relied on humans more than it liked to admit. Humans were often sent to unstable regions because their decisions were fair, their actions predictable, and their presence comforting to species who had learned to trust them. Without humans, many borders would become vulnerable. Still, Torres did not regret walking out. He felt a quiet strength in the choice. Humans had finally shown that they would not accept dishonest treatment. In the ship's conference room, the rest of the delegation gathered. They sat in a circle, speaking softly about what might come next. Some were worried that leaving the summit could make humanity look uncooperative, but others argued that silence under false accusations would have been worse. Torres listened to all of them and encouraged them to speak freely. When the meeting ended, the ship continued its long journey back to Earth, and every human inside felt the same question rising in their minds. What would the galaxy do now? On the council world, chaos was building the moment humans walked out. News channels began broadcasting the event from every angle. Reporters appeared on every screen, explaining how the council had denied humans the right to defend themselves. Footage of Torres bowing politely before leaving became the most replayed image in the galaxy. Across many worlds, people reacted strongly. Some expressed disappointment in the council, while others defended the humans. A few powerful empires attempted to twist the story, claiming that humans had overreacted. But most ordinary citizens saw the truth. They saw a peaceful species being pushed aside. Inside the council chamber, the meeting struggled to continue. Delegates whispered among themselves, glancing at the empty seats where the humans had been. The chair tried to move forward with the summit's agenda, but the room no longer felt cooperative. Several minor species ambassadors stood up, each demanding an explanation. One ambassador from a small aquatic race stated that humans had been crucial in stopping a major conflict on their border. Another said his people trusted human diplomacy more than the council's rulings. The council chair attempted to calm them, but the authority of the position was fading. The older empires exchanged worried looks. They had not expected the humans to react this strongly. For years, they had assumed humans would stay quiet, accept whatever decisions were made, and continue doing the work no one else wanted. Now they realized how wrong they were. On a distant moon station, two officers from different species discussed the event while watching the broadcast. One of them, a reptilian commander, admitted that his fleet had behaved better whenever humans were involved. The other nodded, saying that humans brought a sense of fairness that the council lacked. Their conversation was not unique. Similar discussions spread across hundreds of stations, colonies, and planets. Humanity's reputation grew stronger, not weaker. Meanwhile, the human delegation's ship entered a calm region of space. Torres received a message from Earth requesting a detailed report. He prepared a calm explanation, focusing on facts rather than emotion. He knew the truth was powerful enough on its own. Back on Earth, people gathered around screens in homes, cafes, and workplaces. The moment they heard that the delegation had walked out of the summit, a wave of support spread through the population. Many felt proud. Humanity had worked hard to earn respect in the galaxy, but they had been treated like an afterthought. Walking away felt like reclaiming dignity. Earth's leaders began preparing statements. They debated how to respond to the Council's actions. Some recommended a strong message demanding accountability, while others urged caution to avoid escalating tensions. But the one thing everyone agreed on was clear. Humanity would not apologize. In the coming hours, several alien ambassadors requested emergency meetings with Earth's government. They wanted clarity. They wanted to understand whether humanity intended to break ties with the Council or simply protest. But Earth demanded time to think. For the first time, the galaxy realized that humans were not dependent on the Council, on a frontier world controlled by the Kalari people. A sudden dispute erupted between two local factions. Normally, humans would have been sent to mediate, but with humanity now distant from the Council, there was no one to help. The Kalari requested Council assistance, but the nearest Council mediator had no experience with Kalari culture. The misunderstanding grew into a violent clash. Citizens began posting messages online asking why the humans had not been called. The Council had no answer. In another system, a trade dispute flared between two merchant clans. Humans had mediated their last 5 negotiations successfully. Without them, communication broke down. Accusations turned into threats, and threats turned into armed patrols along the border. The situation became so tense that both clans prepared their defense fleets. The Council attempted to intervene but failed to calm either side. The clans had grown used to the humans' steady logic. They did not trust anyone else. The galaxy was suddenly feeling the absence of a species. It had underestimated. In the Council chamber, the mood worsened as more reports arrived. Conflicts that had been stable for years now threatened to collapse. Several delegates blamed the Council chair for dismissing the humans so publicly. Others blamed the older empires for pressuring the Council into choosing sides. The Council chair was forced to call a private emergency meeting. Behind closed doors, arguments erupted. Representatives from powerful empires insisted that humans were overreacting, but minor species pushed back angrily. They said humanity had been treated unfairly for years and that the Council's arrogance had finally reached a breaking point. For the first time in a long time, the Council felt divided. On the human ship, Torres received news of these growing tensions. He read each report carefully. He felt heavy concern, not satisfaction. Humans had not walked away to create chaos. They had walked away to avoid participating in a dishonest process. But now the galaxy was struggling. He wondered whether they would be asked to return. And if that happened, he wondered whether humans would agree. At that moment, his communication officer entered. She handed him a message from an unexpected Sorsa Minor Species ambassador, who had privately supported humans during past negotiations. The message thanked the humans for standing up for truth and fairness. It also warned that the Council had underestimated the consequences. Torres felt a quiet sense of gratitude. Even in confusion, humanity still had allies. The human ship continued toward Earth, carrying the weight of a galaxy that had suddenly become unstable. The delegation knew they would face difficult questions when they arrived. They knew the Council would likely try to repair its mistake, but they also knew they could not simply return as if nothing had happened. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had changed with it, across dozens of worlds. People watched the stars and wondered what would happen next. Would humans return to diplomacy? Would they form their own coalition? Would the Council collapse under its own arrogance? No one knew, but one thing was clear in every mind. Line had been crossed, and nothing would be the same again. The galaxy felt different in the days that followed the human walkout. It was not a loud kind of change, but a quiet shift that spread through systems like a slow-moving wave. In large cities, on small frontier stations, inside military bases and trade hubs, people began speaking about the humans. Some spoke with worry, others with admiration, but everyone agreed on one truth. Things did not feel stable without them. Far from all this noise, the human delegation continued its journey home. The ship moved calmly through space, though inside, the people were anything but calm. Ambassador Raylan Torres spent hours reviewing reports, messages, and diplomatic updates. Every time he finished one, another arrived. More conflicts, more misunderstandings, more tension. He wished he could feel satisfaction. After all, humans had been ignored and blamed, and now the Council was paying for that arrogance. But Torres did not enjoy seeing the galaxy struggle. He had always believed peace was possible if everyone worked together. Yet now it seemed that cooperation had been broken, and the pieces lay scattered far across the stars. On a Council border world, trouble was growing. Two neighboring empires, the Valari Union and the Noric Dominion, had lived in uneasy peace for years. Humans had been the neutral mediators, the ones who calmed disputes and helped settle disagreements. But now that the humans were gone, small arguments turned into large ones. It began with a trade ship. The Valari accused the Noric of crossing their border without permission. The Noric claimed they had right of passage. Words became threats. Patrol vessels gathered on both sides, their weapons charged but not yet fired. Without humans to step between them, the tension rose like a storm cloud. The Council tried to send mediators, but neither side trusted them. They remembered how the Council had blamed the humans unfairly. If the Council could treat one species unjustly, what would stop it from doing the same to others? The mediators were forced to return, unable to calm the situation. Back on Earth, the news reached the leaders. In a large meeting room inside the United Earth Government Complex, officials watched the reports with heavy expressions. The galaxy was showing signs of unraveling, and humans were at the center of attention even though they had done nothing. One official asked if humanity should reach out to the Council and offer assistance. Another argued that doing so would make them look weak, as if they were begging the Council for approval. Torres, who had joined the meeting through a secure connection from the ship, listened quietly. When they asked for his opinion, he spoke simply. He said that humanity must not rush into anything. The galaxy needed to see that humans walked away for a reason, not out of pride but out of principle. Until the Council understood that returning too quickly would only reward dishonesty, his words carried weight. The officials agreed to wait, but waiting only made the galaxy more nervous. In the outer colonies of the Renari people, peaceful settlements began to worry about their safety. Human peacekeepers had helped protect their borders for years. Now, without humans, they felt exposed. Several Renari elders sent messages to Earth asking if human patrols would ever return. Earth replied politely that they needed time to decide. Some of the elders understood. Others felt abandoned. In the Council chamber, the tension continued to grow. Delegates argued almost nonstop. Some insisted that the humans must be contacted immediately with an apology. Others refused, claiming that apologizing would weaken the council's authority. A young analyst stood before the council with a report. The data showed something unexpected. Over the last 10 years, human mediation had prevented more wars than all other council peace efforts combined. The numbers were clear. Humans had not been a burden, they had been a stabilizing force. Some delegates felt shame. Others felt fear. As they argued, a new report arrived. A rogue fleet had appeared on the edge of a neutral system, and the local forces had no idea how to handle them. Normally, humans would have been contacted immediately. Now that option was gone. The council chair finally spoke, his voice quiet but strained. He admitted that losing the humans had created a dangerous gap in the galaxy's stability, but he refused to admit fault publicly. At least not yet. Meanwhile, the human delegation's ship entered the outer regions of the Sol system. Torres felt relief as Earth came into view. A small blue world surrounded by protective defense satellites and bright space stations. Home always brought comfort. When the ship landed, journalists waited in huge numbers. Lights flashed as they surrounded the delegation. Torres gave a short statement, repeating the same calm message he had given earlier. Humans would not participate in a process where truth was ignored. He did not attack the council. He did not accuse anyone. But his calmness made the message even stronger. People on Earth reacted with mixed emotions. Some were proud. Others were anxious. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. Torres soon met with leaders in person. They discussed everything at length, the growing tensions, the sudden conflicts, the council's internal struggles. Every hour brought new developments, but among all these discussions, something surprising happened. Allies began reaching out. The Plenary Republic sent a message first. They said their people respected humanity's decision and understood why they walked away. They offered support and said they hoped humans would not isolate themselves. Then the small Lyrian collective contacted Earth, thanking humans for years of fair diplomacy. They admitted their people had worried when humans left the summit. They said that if humans ever formed their own independent peace network, the Lorraines would gladly join. These messages surprised the human leaders. They had expected criticism, not growing support. Torres began to realize that the council had damaged its own reputation, more than humanity's, by silencing humans publicly. The council had shown its bias to the entire galaxy. Minor species who had always felt ignored or overshadowed now looked to humans as a symbol of fairness. In the following days, more messages arrived. Some were from species that had once doubted humans. Now they admitted they had misjudged Earth. They apologized softly, not out of fear but out of respect. Torres felt something warm inside him. Even through conflict, humanity's honesty was shining through, yet even with this growing support, humanity remained cautious. They did not want to act too quickly. They wanted the council to understand its mistake, not just feel pressured by public opinion. Still, Earth could not ignore the rising tensions forever. On the Valari-Noric border, fleet movements increased. Patrols hovered dangerously close to each other. Small skirmishes had already begun. No casualties yet, but the danger was clear. The Valari ambassador contacted Earth directly. His message was desperate. He begged the humans to return, not to the council, but to the border between their worlds. He said both sides trusted humans and that only humans could stop a war. Torres felt the weight of the request. This was not about politics. This was about lives. He met with Earth's leaders again. The room was quiet as he explained the situation. He said this was a moment where humanity could show the galaxy that their walkout was not an act of anger, but a stand for honesty. Helping the Valari and Noric without involving the council could prove that humans cared more about peace than pride. The leaders debated, but in the end they agreed. They would send a small human diplomatic team to the border world, not under the council, but as representatives of Earth. When the message reached the Valari and Noric, relief spread through both worlds. And when the news spread across the galaxy, People realized something important. Humans had walked away from the council, but they had not walked away from peace. Their absence had shaken the galaxy, but their actions now reminded everyone why humans were so respected. The council felt the shift immediately. They knew that if humans continued helping others independently, the council's authority would weaken further. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was quietly proving its strength. Not through force, but through integrity. He moved through the silent corridors with slow steps, feeling the air grow heavier around him. The place looked calm, but something unseen followed him like a faint shadow. He did not know what it was, yet he felt it in every breath. The lights on the ceiling flickered again and again, like they were warning him without speaking. He did not stop. He kept walking, hoping the strange feeling would fade, but it stayed with him like a cold hand on his back. Outside, the sky looked darker than usual. Clouds twisted in strange shapes, moving in ways that were not natural. It was as if the entire world was waiting for something to happen, something big and dangerous. Even the trees stood still. The wind refused to blow. The silence was so deep that he could hear his own heartbeat clearly. He reached the main room and looked around. The machines were still working, but the sound they made was weaker than before, almost tired. The screens showed long lines of data that moved slowly, as if struggling to stay alive. He touched one of the screens with his finger, but nothing changed. He felt helpless for a moment, not knowing what to do. He remembered the warnings he had heard earlier. Warnings about things that were not human. Things that moved in the darkness and watched from hidden corners. At first, he thought they were only stories told by frightened minds. Now he was not so sure. The feeling inside him told him that something was watching him. Even now, even in this quiet room, he turned toward the hallway again. The lights flickered harder this time, and one of the bulbs broke with a small, sharp sound. The glass fell to the floor like tiny falling stars before disappearing into the shadows. He stepped back for a moment, startled, but then took a breath and continued forward. As he moved deeper into the hallway, he heard a soft echo behind him. It sounded like footsteps, but slow and uneven. He stopped and listened carefully. The sound stopped too. His heart began to beat faster. He did not turn around. Something inside him said that turning around would be a mistake. He kept walking, faster now, but still trying to stay quiet. The echo returned, closer than before. The footsteps were light, but he could hear them clearly now. The shadow following him was not just a feeling anymore. It was real. He reached the control panel at the end of the hallway and tried to activate the emergency lights. His hands shook slightly, making the buttons harder to press. When the lights finally turned on, they were dim and weak, but enough to show him the long, empty corridor behind him. There was no one there. No figure, no shadow, but the footsteps had been real. He knew it. He swallowed hard and faced the control panel again. He needed to check the main system. The machines were failing, and if the system collapsed, everything else would follow. He looked at the numbers on the screen. They dropped slowly, like a dying heartbeat. Something was interfering with the power. He tried to run a scan, but the screen glitched and turned black for a moment. When the image returned, strange symbols flashed across the display. He did not understand them. They looked like they belonged to another world, another mind. The symbols moved like they were alive, crawling across the screen. He stepped back, feeling a chill run down his arms. The symbols suddenly froze, then faded, leaving the screen empty. He approached again, slowly, and touched the corner of the display. This time the system responded and showed a map of the facility. Red marks appeared in several places, marking areas where the power had been drained. Completely. Something was inside those areas. He needed to check on the others. He moved quickly through the hallway, ignoring the dim lights and the shadows that seemed to stretch toward him as he passed. He heard the faint sound of metal scraping against metal. It did not come from the machines. Something else was moving. He reached the living quarters and knocked on the door. No one answered. He opened it slowly. The room was empty. The beds were untouched. The lights were off. He checked the next room, then the next. All empty. It was as if everyone had vanished at the same time. He finally reached the last room and stopped. The door was slightly open. A faint blue glow came from inside. He pushed the door with his hand and stepped in. The room was also empty, but something on the floor caught his eye. A small device lay there, glowing softly. He picked it up. It was warm. The device suddenly projected a small hologram into the air. He stepped back in surprise as the blue light shaped itself into a figure. It was one of his missing teammates. The figure looked afraid. Her voice shook as she spoke. "If you find this, do not come after us. They are not human. They can move in ways we cannot see. They took us one by one, and they are close. Leave before they find you too. Please. Go." The hologram flickered and disappeared. He stood there in silence, holding the device in his shaking hand. His breath felt heavy. His heart felt like it was wrapped in ice. The warning repeated in his mind, "Leave before they find you." He looked at the doorway. The hallway outside was silent, too silent. The shadows near the walls seemed thicker than before, like they were waiting to move. He slowly stepped backward into the room, unsure of what to do. If he tried to escape now, would they catch him? Or were they waiting for him to make that choice? He moved toward the window and looked outside again. The clouds still twisted slowly. A faint blue light flashed in the distance, the same color as the device in his hand. It pulsed like a signal. He felt a sudden pressure in his head, like someone whispering inside his mind without words. He pressed his hands to his temples and closed his eyes tightly. When he opened them again, the shadows outside the room had grown longer. Reaching toward the door, he backed away, breathing fast. He did not know what those things wanted, but he knew they were coming. He felt the same footsteps again, this time louder, moving through the hallway toward him. He looked around the room for anything he could use. A metal rod lying on the table caught his eye. He grabbed it quickly, though he knew it would not help much. The footsteps came closer. The lights flickered. A cold wind blew into the room. Even though the windows were closed, he tightened his grip on the rod. His heart felt like it would burst. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. The shadow under the door stretched toward him. His breath caught in his throat. Something whispered softly from the other side. A sound he could not understand, but it chilled him down to his bones. Then the door slowly began to open. He stood frozen as the door opened a little more. The soft creak echoing through the silent room. His hand tightened around the metal rod, though he knew it would barely protect him. The shadows in the hallway seemed to pulse like they were breathing. He waited for something to step inside, something unseen but powerful. For a moment nothing happened. Only the faint sound of the twisting clouds outside filled the air. He took a small step back, trying to steady his breath. The hallway beyond the door remained dark, and the lights continued to flicker weakly. He felt the pressure inside his head growing stronger again, like someone pushing him from the inside. He lowered his head and closed his eyes, fighting the strange force. When he opened them again, the door was fully open. The hallway was empty. He felt confused. He had heard footsteps. He had felt the presence. But now it all looked calm. Too calm. He stepped forward slowly, not trusting what he saw. The air felt heavy and cold. Every step he took felt like a step into a silent trap. As he reached the doorway, he noticed something new. A long, dark mark stretched across the hallway floor like something had been dragged. He crouched down and touched it lightly. The mark felt cold, almost freezing. He pulled his hand away quickly. He followed the mark with his eyes. It led deeper into the facility, toward the lower levels. He did not want to go there, but he knew he did not have a choice. The warning from the hologram echoed in his mind, but he could not simply turn away. Something inside him told him that the answers he needed were down there. He took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway. The shadows seemed to move slightly as he passed, but he ignored them and kept going. The mark on the floor guided him like a thin, dark path. The deeper he went, the quieter everything became. Even his footsteps sounded softer, as if the walls were absorbing the sound. When he reached the stairway leading to the lower levels, he hesitated. The lights here were completely off, and the darkness below looked thick, almost like a solid wall. He swallowed hard and tried to turn on the emergency light panel near the stairs. The button sparked weakly but did not respond. He stood there for a moment, feeling the cold creeping up from the lower floor. Then he began to walk down the stairs, one step at a time, gripping the metal rod tightly. The darkness wrapped around him, almost swallowing him whole. He felt as if he was sinking into it. Halfway down the stairs, he heard something. A faint sound. Not footsteps. Not a whisper. It was like distant breathing. Slow, deep in and out. He stopped moving, holding his breath to hear better. The sound continued in the darkness below. He forced himself to keep going. His hand slid along the cold metal railing as he reached the bottom of the stairs. The air here felt colder, almost freezing. A dim blue glow appeared at the far end of the hallway. He walked toward the glow, his footsteps soft and careful. As he got closer, he saw that the glow was coming from a large chamber. The door to the chamber was open, and strange symbols flickered on the walls inside. The symbols were similar to the ones he had seen on the screen earlier. Moving like living shapes, he stepped inside the chamber slowly. The room was large and empty except for a circle of glowing blue lines drawn on the floor. In the center of the circle lay another hologram device. He bent down and picked it up. The device activated instantly, projecting a flickering image. It was a recording from the same teammate as before. She looked even more frightened than in the earlier message. Her voice shook as she spoke. "They brought us here. This room ... They said they were studying us. Not with words. Not with voices. They used our thoughts. They can see inside our minds. They showed us things we cannot understand. They are not angry. They are not cruel. They are simply curious. But their curiosity feels like a knife. Please ... If you are watching this, you need to warn the others. Humans are not ready for creatures like them. They do not understand fear. They do not understand pain. They only observe. And now they are observing you." The hologram flickered and vanished. He stood still for a long moment, feeling his heart hammering inside his chest. His teammate was gone. All of them were gone. Taken by beings that did not think like humans. Beings that watched and studied without emotion. Suddenly the blue lines on the floor began to glow brighter. A low hum rose from the walls like a machine waking up. He stepped back quickly, gripping the rod tighter. The symbols on the walls moved faster, swirling like a storm. Then he heard it. A voice. Not a real voice. It echoed inside his mind, soft but powerful. "Do not fear." He stumbled backward, dropping the hologram device. His breath caught in his throat. The voice continued. "We observe. We learn. We do not harm. Fear changes your thoughts. We want clarity." He shouted out loud, even though he knew they did not need sound to hear him. "Where are my people? What did you do to them?" The voice paused. Then it returned, calm and cold. "They are safe. They are learning. You will learn too." He shook his head. "I won't let you take me." The blue light in the room grew stronger, and the air vibrated. The shadows on the walls stretched toward him. He turned and ran out of the chamber, his heartbeat pounding like thunder. The voice followed him. "Do not run. Running creates panic. Panic creates noise. We cannot learn from noise." He ignored the voice and sprinted down the hallway. The shadows moved along the walls as if they were chasing him. The breathing sound returned, louder now, almost angry. He reached the stairs and climbed them two at a time, gasping for air. The strange force inside his mind pressed harder, trying to slow him. He fought it with every step. When he finally reached the upper level, he ran toward the exit. The facility lights flickered faster as if reacting to his fear. The clouds outside flashed with blue light. The world felt like it was trembling. He burst through the main doors and stumbled into the open air. The cold wind hit him hard, but it felt freeing. He kept running until he reached the edge of the nearby forest. Only then did he turn around. The facility behind him glowed faintly with blue light. Then the voice entered his mind again, softer this time. We will not follow. You are not ready. Humans fear too easily. Fear blocks understanding. We will wait. When your kind is ready, we will return. The voice faded. The clouds above slowly untwisted. The sky began to clear. The blue flashes vanished. He stood there, breathing hard, staring at the silent facility. His people were gone, taken, studied, but alive. He knew what he had to do next. He had to return to the capital. He had to warn the council. The galaxy needed to understand what humanity had walked away from. The peace talks had ended, but the real danger had only just begun. With heavy steps, he turned away from the facility and began the long walk back. The shadows behind him stayed still. The air grew warmer. But he knew the beings were still watching from far beyond sight. Waiting for the day humans would understand them. And when that day came, everything would change.